I'm sorry, but I think it's true. I'm leaving Wheeler Dealers after 13 years of making the show. It was a surprise to everyone. One day, Ed China was carefully showing fans how to rebuild a suspension. The next, he wasn't on Wheeler Dealers and wasn't going to be back. Fans were caught off guard. Ed wasn't just a co-host, he was the show's heart. He was cool, smart, and quietly charming. Millions of homes now have technical skill because of him. It didn't just feel like a casting move when he left, it felt like an insult. Why would someone quit a show that is so popular and well-liked when it's at its best? What was going on behind the scenes that made Ed give up everything? To understand that, you need to go back to when this strange pair first shocked the car world. Two guys, one garage, a change starts. It all began with a simple idea: fix up old cars, show people how to do it, and make the whole thing fun. But Mike Brewer and Ed China made something that would change car shows forever, even though they didn't mean to. Mike was already a seasoned presenter with strong roots in the car business. He had the drive and energy to find gems that were overlooked. That guy could talk a price down and make it sound like fun. He was the one who closed the deal. Ed, on the other hand, was a mystery. He was quiet, calm, and huge, Six says, and his mind worked like a plan. Ed brought skill where Mike brought style. They were a terrible match for each other. The show was real and worked like a clock. People didn't just see changes happen, they learned about them. When things got dirty or hard, the camera didn't cut away. Ed talked about everything from fixing welds to diagnosing turbochargers in a way that was both interesting and relaxing. His shop was like a school for people who wanted to learn how to fix up cars in their own garages. It wasn't just TV, it was a lesson. The recipe not only worked, it thrived for more than a decade. Fans all over the world felt like they had a connection not only to the cars, but also to the hosts himself. It felt real and like you were watching two old friends fight over an engine while they were doing magic. But even as the show reached new heights and became a cult favorite, tensions began to rise below the surface. There were rumors of disagreements and decisions being made behind closed doors. We all know that success costs money, and theirs was about to be due. Next, something would happen that would rock the show to its core. The chains got tighter as the show got bigger. Moving to the United States in 2013 wasn't just about cars, it was about growth. With new cars, a new society, and, most importantly, a new market. The U.S. loved stuff about cars, and Wheeler Dealers had already shown it could fight on a global level. It was time for them to step it up and become a world name, not just a UK favorite. However, that big jump got the attention of major networks, and changes had to happen. The budget for making the movie went up, the sets got better, and the stakes went up, but the stress did too. It got bigger with more talks and leaders. What used to be a small, close-knit garage business started to feel like a business office. All of a sudden, this small UK show turned into a machine that had to perform, create, and entertain on a strict schedule. It became less important to be authentic. There were cuts to the longer fixed scenes, which were what made the show stand out. To make room for ad breaks and faster pace, Ed's in-depth looks at diagnostics, problem-solving, and clever engineering hacks were cut down or completely removed. The shows became more about Mike's big deals and less about Ed's smarts. Fans took notice. Online sites were busy and comment parts were full. "Where's the detail?" they asked. "How do I do this? Where did the learning go?" Many people who work in production thought it was just a bit of streamlining, which is how American TV shows are formatted. But for Ed China, it was a change in philosophy, a slow but clear loss of the values that made Wheeler Dealers more than just another car show. It wasn't just about fixing up cars. It was also about showing respect for the process and the smart people watching. Ed knew they had gone too far when they tried to cut even more class time, suggested hiring outside help, and limited Ed's work to short sound bites. Ed had to make a choice that wasn't just about a job. It was about who he was as an artist, his honesty, and everything he stood for. Fans were shocked by what he did next, which changed the future of the show and caused a storm of debate that no one saw coming. Everything changes when Ed China speaks out. The news wasn't shared on the show. The network did not send it. It was Ed himself on his own YouTube page, talking to his fans straight in front of a camera. Nothing fancy was added or changed. It was just Ed, the truth, and a blank background. He spoke in a cool, controlled way, but every word he said was important. Ed said that Velocity, soon to be Motor Trend, the network, was planning to cut down on the technical parts even more. They wanted to bring the show up to date by cutting down on the long fixed scenes and making the episodes go by faster. It all made sense to the bosses. With less garage time, there was more time for big deals and excitement that people liked to watch. But for Ed, it was a lie. He said that these changes would make the show less like itself. The level of technical detail would go away, along with the teaching value that had inspired mechanics all over the world. Staying would mean acting like you know what you're doing, which would water down the spirit of Wheeler Dealers. Instead, he did the hardest thing he had ever done in his career. He quit. The video got around very quickly. Fans were shocked, but most of them were encouraging in the comments. For standing his ground, Ed was called a hero for being honest. It was clear what the lesson was. Being real was more important than numbers. But something darker started to grow in the background of the cheers. People began to spread rumors, point fingers, and make charges. The game of who was to blame was about to get much more personal. The charges that almost brought down Mike Brewer came out. As the internet came together to support Ed, a different story started to spread. This one made Mike Brewer look like the bad guy in the story to some fans. Someone had to be in charge, and Mike was the most obvious person to blame. There was a range of claims from mild to serious. He should have known. He did not stop. He let Ed get away with it. Some even said Mike had been working behind the scenes to get more power and had quietly fired Ed to make the network happy and fit in with the new plan. The idea caught on like wildfire in online groups and comment sections, where people talked about it and speculated about it. Mike lied about everything in public. He agreed with Ed's choice, told him how talented he was, and wished him the best. In secret, though, he was under attack. The reaction wasn't just online, it turned out to be very real. Mike said in a sad interview that he and his family were being bullied online. His daughter was threatened and his wife was scared. Eventually, the police had to step in and protect them from what had turned into a full-on hate campaign. "I had to call the police," Mike said, and his voice broke. "Someone said they were going to kill me." It was a shocking turn of events. The effects of Ed's leaving had changed into something dangerous. What started out as a disagreement about art had turned violent. Mike Brewer was stuck in the middle, whether he was guilty or not. His safety was at risk and his image was harmed. The emotional and professional scars would last for a long time. Even though there's no proof that Mike planned Ed's departure, the people had already spoken. The harm was done. Stayed quiet about it and never spoke out against the threats or defended Mike in public. There was only the buyer and no one else in the storm. The show didn't end, though. Wheeler Dealers was still a well-known name around the world, and it needed a new mechanic quickly. But what about someone who could replace Ed China? Could you change a legend? Ant Anstead comes in. He is good-looking, outgoing, and good at fixing things. Ant looked like the best person to step into Ed China's huge shoes. He was a former police officer who now builds cars. He had real-life experience both behind the scenes and in the car, which was a rare mix that producers hoped would win over fans who were skeptical. It was fun to work with Mike, the projects were good, and the shows went smoothly. Ant made the screen more interesting, charming, and useful. At one point, it looked like the show might actually make it through the change. The rating stayed the same, and the structure stayed the same, at least on the surface. But fans always found fault and said so. It had been quiet and organized for Ed, but Ant was quick, full of energy, and always ready for the camera. Where Ed taught, Ant had fun. Some watchers loved the faster pace and better images, but others thought something was missing. The thoughtful, quiet style that had made Wheeler Dealers feel like a do-it-yourself garage where you could learn from the pros. For them, it was turning into a show about cars rather than a show for people who love cars. Ant quit in 2020, but there was no big fuss or a fiery exit. It was just another change in the show's history. Then there was Mark. Elvis Priestley. He was smart, passionate, and easy to pull for. Because he had been on a race team and was always happy, Elvis made the workbench feel safe and welcoming. But the same criticism stuck around, even though he had real skills and a nice personality. Fans kept asking, "Where's the heart?" Even though the mechanics were good and the cars were great, there was no real question about how good these new hosts were at their jobs. Instead, the real question was whether Wheeler Dealers could ever get back the soul it lost when Ed China left the garage. While the show tried to find its voice and hit the same note twice, Ed was quietly rebuilding his own world away from the cameras, but he wasn't forgotten. Ed China starts over, but this time he does it his way. In 2021, Ed China came back, but this time it was to YouTube, where he had full power over every frame. There are no managers, time limits, or outside influence from the company, just Ed, a camera, and the pure magic of real engineering. He started a show called Workshop Diaries that took things very simple. Ed lived in his own world, with no network rules, flashy edits, or staged dramas. Each show went into great detail about real fixes, test builds, and well-thought-out explanations. From turning cars into electric ones to rebuilding gearboxes, it was the spirit of Wheeler Dealers brought back in every way. Ed worked on a wide range of projects, from old Land Rovers to designs for the future. He didn't just show people what he was doing, he also told them why he was doing it, breaking down each step. The tone was low-key, personal, and very pleasant. A lot of fans came because they missed the old-school magic of Ed China. There was a lot of praise in the comments. People who had watched it before said it was like coming home. The number of views and members went up, but most importantly, Ed seemed truly happy to be back, where passion and accuracy led the way instead of rushed work and drama. He even went back and looked at famous cars from Wheeler Dealers that never got the attention they earned. He could finally show those builds the love and care they needed on his own station. Ed told the whole story the way it was meant to be told, with no commercial breaks or cuts for editing. At the same time, Mike Brewer was still in charge on TV, adding new faces and builds to the brand to keep it alive. But as Workshop Diaries became more popular, fans started to ask a question that got louder and more persistent with each new episode. What would happen if Mike and Ed ran into each other again? Would it be a get-together or a reckoning? A heritage, two paths, and people who still want to see the band together. Years have gone by. In the business world, Ed and Mike are no longer together. For fans who watched every engine repair, gearbox fix, and funny moment, the story doesn't feel like it's over. Not really. Mike Brewer is still the host of Wheeler Dealers, but the co-hosts change with the times. He has kept the brand alive through new markets, platforms, and the ever-evolving needs of modern TV. He's become a symbol of strength because he always smiles, keeps going, and finds the next deal. Even though the show looks different, it still has a strong base. Ed, on the other hand, has become even more honest. His YouTube site, Workshop Diaries, is more about his love than making money. He doesn't follow fads or change his writing to fit what marketers want. He makes what he wants, talks about what's important, and inspires a group of gearheads who put honesty above all else. Even though he only has a small following, they are very loyal and still trust him. Neither man has talked about the other in depth in public. There were no shared interviews, heartfelt posts, or dramatic meetings. There was just a long, tense, quiet. Fans still read between the lines of this one, a silence full of possibilities and unsaid past. No matter what, people keep asking, could it ever happen? They could work together again for a recreation, a one-time show, or even just to talk about what really happened behind the scenes. So Wheeler Dealers was never just about cars. It was always about two men who had different ideas but the same heart. And it was about love, trust, and the fun of fixing things that are broken, both inside and between people. Also, the garage door might not be shut all the way. It could be just waiting to be opened one last time. What do you think? Did Wheeler Dealers lose its magic when Ed China left, or did it just change into something else? Share your ideas in the box below. This is a deep look at one of the most talked about breaks on TV. If you liked it, please like, follow, and ring the bell.